I remember standing in front of my classroom. High school juniors. We had just finished reading and discussing a short story, so when I asked them to take out their pens and paper and write a paragraph about what they thought the meaning of the story was going to be, it felt simple. I wasn't asking for a 5-paragraph essay or a big analysis. I just wanted their thoughts. But before pens came out, hands went up. Do you want this single or double-spaced? I just kind of smiled and said, just start writing. How many sentences do you think this paragraph's going to need to be? Again, I smiled and said, just start writing. As I scanned my classroom of bright, curious students, I saw so many of them just staring at blank pages. In fact, one student wrote a sentence, erased it, wrote another sentence, held up the paper to me and said, "Is this right?" I started to think to myself, wait, did I not explain the directions right? Maybe they didn't understand the story. But then a thought hit me. Somewhere along the way, we have taught students to value correctness over thoughtfulness. We've taught them to follow directions, but we haven't taught them to trust their own thinking. And once you see it, you're going to see it everywhere. Later, years later, I'm a leadership consultant, and I'm helping a vice president with a strategic planning meeting. He stands up, and he says, "Okay, team, what are we going to do about this challenge we're facing?" Suddenly, eyes go down. Laptops come up. People start shuffling through their notes, and there's this silence. Finally, someone raises their hand and says, "Why don't you tell us what direction you're thinking we should go?" And I'm right back in my classroom. See, that question, that statement, that's just the grown-up version of, how many sentences does this need to be? That's what I realized. We don't have a leadership problem. We have a thinking crisis. And if we don't solve it, the results aren't going to be loud and fast. They're going to be slow and silent. You see, ideas, they're just going to dry up. Curiosity, it's just going to fade. And connection, what we have left of it, is just going to disappear. Oh, we'll keep walking, but we're going to stop thinking. And the warning signs are everywhere. In fact, in classrooms, we say, we want critical thinkers, but you know what we do? We test for right answers. In organizations, we say, we want innovation, but we're really critical of failure. And in meetings, we say, tell me what you think. But we've already decided what direction we're going. That's why I have spent years studying thinking. My dissertation looked at specifically creative thinking and the gap that seems to exist between what we say we value in education, but what we actually cultivate. But then I wanted to go a step further, and I wanted to see how this impacts the workforce. So I led a study, a national one, of 1,000 working Americans, different generations, different industries, and I asked them, what do you see in your daily workforce when it comes to curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, and connection? Well, the results were fascinating, if not a little disheartening. You see, 62% of people said that their companies say they value creativity, but they reward conformity. So we say, oh, bring me your ideas, but we reward, do what I say. 67% said that the fear of making mistakes keeps them from sharing new ideas. I need you to let that sink in for just a second. 67% of working Americans today are so afraid that they're going to stay silent. And you know what? When fear leads, thinking just shuts down. We asked managers, executives, people in leadership, do you encourage creative and critical thinking? Do you encourage connection? And they said, of course we do, all the time. But guess what? When we ask the employees that same question, we got a totally different story. It's not that leaders don't care. Leaders care. It's just that intent doesn't create culture. Behavior does. Behavior that is seen, that is modeled, that is valued when you think no one's paying attention. In fact, 87% of our participants, when we asked them what makes a great leader, they said, well, leaders who are curious, leaders who are deep thinkers and creative and critical thinkers, leaders who connect with people around them. So here's the thing, we know what we need from leaders. The problem is, we're not seeing it modeled. Here's what I want you to do. Do me a favor and close your eyes for just a second. And I want you to picture that teacher, that one that made an impact on your life, the one that maybe changed the way you think. I bet you can picture them. I bet you can even picture the classroom you were in. Okay, you can open your eyes. Mine was Mrs. Rundiel. She was my junior year English teacher, probably why I became an English teacher. But she wore pearls every day. And she gave me my very first big red F. She taught me how to write. But more importantly, she taught me how to think because she gave me a safe place to take risks, a safe place to fail. She challenged me to grow. My guess is your teacher probably wasn't the one with all the answers. It was the one who knew how to ask better questions. It was probably the one that gave you a safe place to struggle. My guess, it's that teacher that saw something in you before you even saw it in yourself. You see, great teachers, they don't control thinking, they cultivate it. And leaders, man, we gotta do the exact same thing. Now look, I'm gonna be honest, I've done it before. I go to my staff and I say, I want your input, but I've already made the decision. Or I stay silent in a meeting when I think I have an idea that just might help us go in another direction. See, that's how simple, subtle it can be to unintentionally silence your thinking and the thinking of others. But here's the problem. Right now, we're exhausted. When we ask participants, what keeps you from thinking deeper? You know what they said? We're tired, we're overloaded, we're mentally fatigued. Who blames them? How can you be curious, connected people when, man, you're just trying to survive? But there's hope. Because when we ask participants, well, what do you need? What would help you think deeper? They didn't ask for less meetings or more benefits. They didn't ask for a pizza party or a trivia night. You know what they asked for? They asked for better leaders. Leaders who think, who pause, who reflect, and who genuinely listen to them. You know what they asked for? They asked for leaders who lead like the great teachers teach. And here's what we often forget. Permission to think doesn't come from a memo or a poster in the break room. It comes when leaders model. They model the behavior. And our research shows that there are 4 very simple, human, teacher-like things leaders can do immediately to get thinking thriving. Number 1, they can give time and space for people to think independently. Instead of handing down answers, they step back and say, why don't you run with this? I want to see what you're thinking. Number 2, they listen to ideas, all ideas, even if they're uncomfortable. A great leader, when faced with perspectives that they don't necessarily align with, they respond with, tell me more. I want to understand how you're seeing this. Number 3, they respond to questions in ways that make it safe to challenge assumptions. You know that old, why are we always doing it this way? Instead of shutting that down, they say, great question. Why don't we look at other options together? And number 4, they listen for feedback at all levels, not agreement. So they actively seek out those voices that may be silent, that haven't been speaking up lately, and they ask for that feedback, and then they value it, they treasure it, even if that feedback is hard to hear. See, that's not management. That's great teaching. And here's what keeps me up at night. It's not that people can't think. See, people can think. It's just that they've learned it's safer not to. They're so afraid of making mistakes or being unfairly judged that they protect themselves. They are so tired of speaking up when nothing changes. So, you know what? They just stay in the lines. They let someone else go first. And that kind of silence, well, that doesn't just limit innovation, it limits people. Back in my classroom, when my students would say, "Is this right?" I stopped answering it. Instead, I said, "I don't know, you tell me, what do you think?" Oh, they hated it at first. Hated that. But suddenly I saw something shift in my classroom. They stopped erasing, and they started sharing their ideas out loud. When I would say things like, "Oh, I love that you took that risk. That question, man, that's deep thinking." Their confidence level started to go up, because here's what I did. I started recognizing the courage of thinking rather than the correctness of it. Here's what I want for you. Next time you are in a leadership position, whether it be in your organization, in your classroom, or maybe in the community, I want you to think about that teacher you just imagined. And I want you to ask yourself 3 very simple teacher-like reflection questions. Number 1, when ideas they're just uncertain, do you get curious or do you get corrective? When someone is struggling, do you rush in to fix it? Or do you stay in the thinking? And when your plan doesn't go quite like you wanted to because someone questioned it, do you shut it down? Or do you lean in? See, our world doesn't need leaders who have all the answers. We need leaders who help us find the answers we need by asking incredibly great thinking questions. You know, we don't need more managers of tasks. What we need are mentors of thought. We don't need another leadership trend. What we need is a deeper thinking revolution. And it starts when leaders start leading like the great teachers teach. Thank you.